Alright guys, it's been a while. It's been a hugely long time.
That's right.
It's another episode of The 5%.
Where we talk about our critical successes and our critical fails and our own homebrew D&D campaign. In this episode, we're going to talk about our first campaign arc wrap-up that we've been doing in our main campaign. So we'll talk a little bit about what was going on in that campaign and what some of the characters basically encountered during that.
Hell yeah. So how about we'll start with successful here. So, getting a critical hit with a D20 during, so actually it's funny, Ed, he actually DMs two campaigns. I call it the Friday night and then the Saturday night campaign. And so for Friday night, I used a character named David the Gnome, who I'm pretty sure we discussed last time.
Yes, we did.
And so during this campaign, actually, the party had to go, let's just say we got lost, we got stuck in the Feywild. And, because Ed's a jerk. I'm just kidding. And so we got stuck in the Feywild, and we had to go through this entire quest to essentially kind of buy our way back, kind of. Not buy, but like we were...
pretty much just find the way back, and there was this group of dryads that you met, and they had lost their artifact of their village, essentially the heart of the forest, and you were tasked to go find it. It led you on this huge encounter where you went to the Sun Elves and their kingdom, and then you found out that the brother of the king, who has a lot of debts and owes a lot of money, basically was working for this one dark elf in order to find this. Eventually, what you found out was this guy that was with the dark elves wasn't really working with their government. In fact, he was working for a secret government called the Kraken Society, which is also in Forgotten Realms. I'm kind of like,
I like it.
To the world. So there was a reason why he was trying to bring instability to the Feywild.
And this guy, Arnath, the dark elf, we just going back to the whole D20, we eventually find him, we confront him, our entire party, David, the gnome, wizard, we have Bobby,
the bard.
The bard, and then we have Bob, who's a druid, and then we
never get those confused.
Yeah, never, what? And then we had Roxas, who was our fighter. And then we had a few, we'll call them special guest characters, things like that.
Right, that would come in different segments.
Yeah. But so we get to this area. David, I'm able to use alter self, and I look just like a dark elf. We get to this guy's house. Through a few complications, we get into a fight. We're victorious, and we go through the day. We find this heart of the forest, and we're trying to come up with a plan for the next day. While David's on watch, we get a knock on the door. Insert knock noise. And it's these two guards who are like, so...
Yeah, and they happened to be working with Arnath. They were actually members of the Kraken Society. Basically, they were going to bring up... they were going to take the Oak Stone.
Yeah.
They themselves weren't, but they were basically notifying Arnath that in the morning, two other envoys that don't even know them, it's a very secret society, nobody knows that anybody else other than the higher echelon, we're going to take this. So the door opened, these two guards were talking to Arnath, and what happened?
Talking to Arnath, and again, David, he turned into Arnath so that there would be no suspicion. And they look past me like, what's that dead body over there?
Yes.
And guess who the dead body was?
Arnath. The party completely forgot to clean up. They're sitting there for hours, resting up, dealing with this dead body right there.
So the literal body of Arnath is right there. And so, thinking on my toes, David says, oh, yeah, these intruders came in here earlier, and while they were fighting, they had the idea of taking over my golem by shape-shifting into me. And Ed's like, okay, do a deception check.
Okay.
And it was
now, mind you, for this deception check, I would have not accepted anything but a nat 20. Nothing else would have, this is full face lie, right?
And I get a nat 20.
Right. So, I'm as a DM, I'm like, okay, well, I have to award this because this is amazing feat in itself. But yeah, even if it would have been like an unnatural 20 or 23, I would have really questioned it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the fact that it was a critical success, I was like...
Just something, we should talk about quick. A lot of people assume that, I rolled higher than a 20, it should be success. Like, there is power in the natural 20. Like, the natural 20 trumps all. Mm-hmm. Like, a natural 20 might as well be a 40 if you're...
It's like a miracle from God sometimes.
Exactly. So, like, even if you have something like this, like, let's say these two characters were highly skilled in magic. And, they might have realized that, it doesn't really sound right, or something like that. Let's say, for deception, I roll, like, an 18, and let's say, it ends up being 25. They might not buy it because, it's not an act of God. I mean...
But it just worked out in your favor that this happened, and you rolled that, and they did believe you.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, you got in some deep down the line because... part of your party decided to just walk down the streets as the other two envoy were coming, and you got accosted, and then the guards got in, and it was a big kerfuffle. But that was a success in itself because of how David rolled.
David. And I usually roll really crappily, honestly, with David, but that was a good day. That was a good day. Oh, remember last time with that one creature, the Roper?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
David was unconscious in the fight, and that was the first time in a long time that happened to David.
And just if you guys want to know, we obviously escaped the Feywild, which actually brings us to our crit fail.
Right. So, in our second kind of arc after the main Feywild, the party got back, and they basically were able to planescape because one of the satyrs of the Dryad village was able to find a way. Once they retrieved the stone, it was kind of a deal that they would be able to do so. So they get to this town.
And we had our memories. We didn't... And we'd only gone for like a few hours?
Right, because again, rolling for basically the wisdom check in order to see if they remember any of their experiences, they all succeeded. Nobody failed. And also to roll to see how long, because the Feywild is very timey-wimey, very crazy with how time works there. Again, it was just the right roll to be like, oh, it was just a couple hours. So you were back, and you were in the city called Ankara, and it was on the coastlands of Idosha, on the very tip of the shore there. There was a harbor town.
I just gotta say quick with this, it just shows that sometimes it's very hard to separate meta from in the game because one of our party members summoned a unicorn. And so, think about this, that's awesome. But like this town, which David knew of, he knew that would be a little weird to show up in a unicorn.
Right.
So that's why I was like, oh no, it was a Pegasus, right?
It was a Pegasus.
It was a Pegasus, not a unicorn, Pegasus.
Yeah.
And so that's why, we flew, but then we rode in just because it's like, well, that might look weird. And it's just one of those things with D&D where, like, sometimes I think we automatically assume this is a magical world. So it's like, let's just go over the top, which you can't always do that.
Right. A great DM will infuse some of those anxieties, those stresses, the more realistic setting inside the fantasy magical setting as well. So a little bit of both to make it more realistic at times. So yeah, you were able to get there. Basically what happened was eventually you took a mission with basically a crime boss in the city named Marty Mandrake and Mandrake's Dozen. He's this little halfling, has like eye patch over his eye, very like tough dude, right? He actually at certain parts actually even dismembered and even killed one of his own basically henchmen because he didn't trust him.
I say he literally cut a finger off and then he's like, you see that I cut this finger off, but this guy betrayed me, and one of our members is like, well, I'm surprised you didn't kill him.
Yeah. This guy makes Tony Soprano cringe. Like he's this
I like him.
He's
a cool character.
So they had basically the one member of the party, Roxas. He has this backstory where he was cursed by the goddess Lyra, and I don't know how much of this the party knows.
He told us this.
So I'm gonna at least try to but basically the fact that his family was cursed because of her, and he was essentially trying to find a way to locate her by temple, some way to basically try to...
He almost wants to defeat her, kind of.
Defeat her. And he, basically, Marty, not being any kind of religious individual, is an individual that can get things for people. So he says, okay, well, I will provide from people I know, some sources of what you need, but you have to do something for me. And so he wanted 2 chests of gold off of one of the merchant trading company ships. And there are 2 merchant trading companies in Ankara. One is the Golden Eye Merchant Guild.
They're made up of they're
mostly humans. Different races, but mostly humans in the province of Irkar, which is basically like Barbossa in Game of Thrones. It's very, very banker, very rich with money, and so that's where they're from. And then the other one's the Allied Elven Guild, which is made up of a bunch of different elven territories that have basically created a shipping company. So Marty said he wanted you to steal from the Golden Eye, and you were to get 2 chests of gold, but there was a little bit of a catch. In order to basically throw off the scent, you were to disguise as elves.
We had to look like elves to like kind of like start this huge conflict.
Right. So basically, it allowed like David to use his alter self and other party members.
Which didn't even matter anyway, because we just ended up turning invisible.
Yeah, you turned invisible. You have a magic carpet at your disposal. Well, at least at that point.
At that point, yeah.
Yes. And you're able to basically...
We kind of finagled our way where we got to the chest, and so there were I think there were like, 6 different chests there. You know, David checked for traps.
Yes.
And so we opened 3 of the chests, I believe.
Right.
We opened 3 of them. And then there was one that had like just kind of a magical presence to it.
Yeah, it was a long box. It was a big, like, long box. And it had an aura, and like that kind of like piqued the interest of the party.
The party isn't everyone but David, because David's honestly not about stealing.
Right. So Roxas especially was like, I want to see what's in this. And it was funny because when you find out what the item was, it worked perfectly for his character.
Yeah.
It was a sword.
It was a...
And he, being a fighter, if it was anything else, he'd be like...
What kind of sword was it?
So it is it's called the 9 Lives Stealer Sword.
Is it like
a long sword?
No, I'm trying to get you to say it's a cursed sword.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, this happens to be a cursed sword. So basically what happens is, after the party like gets away and all that stuff, and they recoup back at the inn, that's when he basically opens up the long box, and he's able to see that it's this, beautiful sword.
And we're all looking at it, and like we're getting like a vibe from it, but like no one has any reason to touch it yet. And then he just kind of
He grabs it, and as soon as he does, like I could tell some of the party members playing D&D before and knew where I was going with it, and it was like, "Are you my master?" and all this kind of stuff. And then it ends up basically, it worked out not perfectly for him, but in the situation, because Roxas is so bent on getting Lyra. As soon as he mentioned he has enemies, do you have enemies? And he mentions Lyra, he's like, bring me to her.
Yep.
And this just like, he already failed his...
I would say he failed his save, so he was like overtaken.
That's our critical fail, because he failed his wisdom save very badly. And so that just allowed the sword to basically, he had no willpower over this. And the party kind of heard him talking a little bit to himself, but not enough to like have suspicion yet. So they don't really know about this, but he is imbued by this sword.
Well, he was literally talking out loud, almost to himself, and we're like, who are you talking to? Are you okay?
Yeah.
But I'm very curious how this will play out.
Yeah, and it just works because he not only is just this huge barbarian that loves to kill things. That's not his thing. His thing is he is specifically bent on getting like Lyra. And there was a situation where he almost killed someone else because at Marty's place, but he didn't.
Yeah. But we can get into that in a little bit. So
as it goes on, it's be interesting to see what's going to happen to Roxas if he continues to hold the sword.
So again, this was our 5%. Again, we'll have another episode reviewing our other campaign on Saturday. We got through our entire current campaign. We're moving on to something new. So
we are.
And maybe we'll have a session coming up on metagaming and how you can avoid it, or how some people do metagame. Because that's something I wouldn't mind talking about.
And we'll also talk about, like, as a DM, how you can counteract that, and also what are some ways that you can try to prevent it from happening in the future.
Awesome. Guys, it's summer of D&D, summer of Geeking with the guys. We'll have plenty of these out. We'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.